pivot at our waist and cast this and see what it does. See that? Again, no thumb, no problem. And give a little pivot cast. Oh yeah, you see what happens? That's what happens.
So you got your first bait caster. What do you do with it now? You just got it in the mail. It's all shiny. It's looking fresh. It's calling your name. You want to get out in your yard and cast, but you got trees all around, so you scratch that idea. Then you think, I want to go to the park and cast it, but then it's raining outside, so then you gotta wait. Well, luckily, you can watch this video and learn how to do this in your own living room. You don't even have to do some of these steps out in a big old space. You can do it within the confines of your living room, just to learn these simple steps. So thank you for watching the KastKing channel. My name is Shane, aka Magic Yacker, and in today's video, I'm gonna teach you how to finally use your brand new bait caster. Whether your reel is red, white, or blue, you've come to the right place. I'll teach you how to use your bait caster with braided fishing line and...
Oh yeah, you see what happens? That's what happens.
Plastic fishing lines like mono and copolymer and fluorocarbon. I'll tell you why I firmly believe you should learn how to cast a bait caster with braided fishing line, and we'll teach you a few parts of the reel you might not know. Thanks for tuning in. Stick around. Let's get into the video.
Alright, in today's video, you are going to learn how to cast a brand new bait caster with braided fishing line. For this, you are going to need any bait caster and any braid. I recommend 10 pound to 15 pound braid in order to do this correctly. If you don't know how to put line on your reel, I suggest you stop right here and go watch some videos on how to put line on your reel. We will also demonstrate how to cast line with plastic line as well, so that way you can see the differences between braid and plastic lines such as mono and fluorocarbon and copolymers. Alright, as you can see, we have put our braid on. We ran out of 10 pound braid, so we had to add 20 pound braid, but that's okay. We will start this demo with 20 pound braid. You can see I have the spool loaded up about 3/4 of the way. Now we're going to load it on a rod and go cast it. So here's the rod of choice. This happens to be a KastKing jerkbait rod. KastKing Perigee first generation jerkbait rod that I still have. 6 foot 9 inch rod, medium heavy, and we're gonna string this braid through the guides and tie up a little casting lure and go to town. And I'm gonna teach y'all. We're gonna tie up a little casting lure, and I'm going to teach y'all how to cast any bait caster right out of the box. So stay tuned. Alright, there we go. There's my little casting weight. All it is a paper clip and a little 1/4 ounce cylinder weight, and that's going to give us a nice little casting weight. It's usually, if you don't want to make something like this, just get a little jig or about a 1/4 ounce jig head with the soft plastic on the hook, and that should do just fine as well. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to do with any bait caster is I'm going to push the thumb bar down. This is the thumb bar, okay? And then to engage, you just click the reel so it stops it from falling. Otherwise, it's going to fall down. And the first thing I'm going to do is click the thumb bar and see how this lure falls naturally. And that is actually pretty close to what we're looking for. Let me give you a few examples of what might happen. Here's one example. See how that happened? I'll show you why that happened in just a second. Here's another example. You see that? It doesn't even fall. We have to pull it out for it to fall. See that? Now if we mess with this little blue knob right here, you see how it slowly starts to go? And if we mess with that blue knob a little bit more, whoa, look at that. Magic starts to happen. So this, the tension control knob. And this is the first thing you should pay attention to whenever you buy a new bait caster. Is it gonna have this knob? If it has this knob, great. So now that we've gone over the thumb bar, this is how you release the spool. And you click the reel to engage it, and we've gone over the tension, and we've gone over the first thing to look for is how slow or fast the lure falls, and if our spool stops or not. That's the first things we look for when we're gonna go cast our new bait caster. Now, the next thing we need to pay attention to is if our bait caster has a side plate like this with a dial and numbers on the side. If it does, that means it has a separate kind of brakes. So we got to figure out how to get on in to the inside of our reel. So as you can see here, this reel has magnetic brakes. These are the magnets over here. And if I adjust this dial right here, it'll move those magnets up higher or raise them in. You can see that there's a little spring right here under this screw, and there's two of them, and as we move the dial, it moves those magnets closer to the reel or further away from the reel. And the closer they are to this reel, the closer they are to the spool, the more control the magnets have over how fast or slow the spool moves. So we'll put that back on, and we'll put that all the way up to max, so those magnets are right by that spool. Now let's give it a cast. Remember, we've already gone over the thumb bar, the tension control knob. We have braid on our reel. Now we need to cast it. Okay, so before we do any casting, I want to talk about different types of casting. This cast that I'm about to do is just going to be back and forth, just like that. Back and forth. I'm not flinging my wrist back, nothing like that. I just want to show you how it's going to be done. So we're just going to pivot at our waist and cast this and see what it does. See that? Look, no backlash. Okay? We didn't even have to put our thumb on the spool. Let's do that again, nice and easy. See that? Perfectly stops, just like that. Okay? And that's not a very far cast, but it's getting the lure going, the spool going, and you are having confidence in yourself because you are not backlashing. Now, the second cast I want to show you is just flinging your arm out there and getting a little more bend in your rod and letting the rod help you cast your lure. So I'm going to stay still at my waist, and I'm just going to use my arm to cast. Same thing. Further cast, but no problem backlashing. One more time. Again, no thumb, no problem. Now, let's take the tension spool and drop it down and loosen it to where that spool keeps running. You see how that spool keeps running? Now let's cast it and see what happens. Again, we're going to do the easy cast, pivot at the waist first. Okay, do you see how the spool started to keep running? Now let's try that. Again, that wasn't a very far cast. Now let's try that with the wrist or the arm cast. Boom. Still no overrun. Alright, now we've messed with our tension knob. We've loosened the tension knob only. Now we still have our brakes all the way up. Now let's drop the brakes all the way down. Okay? Those magnets are now all the way separated from the spool. Our tension knob is still pretty loose. You can see how fast it falls. If I take my hand off, it's going to pretty much backlash, so let's see what happens. Or excuse me. If I take my thumb off, it's going to pretty much backlash, so let's see if that happens. Not too bad, but you can see there we had the start of a backlash where it starts to wrap back on itself. Alright, now let's do an arm cast and see what happens. Oh, look at that, you see? That magnetic brake all the way on 0 was definitely helping us because we just had our first backlash. Not a bad one, but it could have been a lot worse. So we'll get this backlash out, reel back up. We got a very far cast, so we got a lot of line to reel out, or a lot of line to reel in. Okay, now let's try that again, just pivoting at the hips. Oh, you see that? The spool is still going. The spool was still going because we didn't have any magnetic brakes on it. Now let me get this backlash out real quick. Only that backlash wasn't that hard to get out. Now we're gonna reel it back up. I've already readjusted my tension knob. Very long cast again. Again, this is I don't even know how much this baitcaster is, but I know it's probably one of the cheapest ones that KastKing offers. So we got our tension spool adjusted back. Now let's throw the brakes up to 5 and try that cast again, pivoting at the waist and see what happens. Okay, so you see that? A slight backlash, but one that we can easily pick out this time. Reel that up. Now let's go all the way back up to 9 again and see what happens. There it is. That is how you cast a baitcaster with confidence. Okay, so here we have another reel, little cosmetically different, but in theory still the same. It's also a different hand. I highly recommend, if you start learning a baitcaster, to not only learn casting with the handle on this side, but also with the handle on this side. Tension spool knob, again, we're gonna tighten that all the way so it doesn't move when we push our thumb bar down. Okay, and we're going to have the brakes all the way up to 9. Again, this has the magnetic brake system, and we're going to give a little pivot cast. Boom, no thumb again. Now let's do a wrist cast and see what happens. Again, no thumb. Alright, again, we're throwing a plastic line on this reel so you can see the differences with that too. Now we'll go magnetic brake all the way down, tension knob still strong, and see what happens. Pivot at the waist. Look at that. Went even further this time. So that's one all the way up, one all the way down. Let's let our tension knob go a little bit to where that spool starts to move. There we go, it's moving. And give a little pivot cast. Oh yeah, you see what happens? That's what happens. So even with that small adjustment, we now have a mess on our hands. So hopefully I was able to show you all the benefits of learning to cast with braid and plastic line. I highly recommend casting on, or learning how to cast a baitcaster with braided line, because you're going to find that the backlashes are very easy to pick out compared to your fluorocarbon or your mono. There we go. See how quick that was? Man, he smashed it. First one on that scum frog. Oh man. That is a hard, sharp hook right there. You got him.